Welcome to the Pool House Podcast. Pool House.
We're back. Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Hello.
Welcome to the Pool House Podcast. This week, it's a big week. It's a big week. We did our first interview, and it was very enjoyable. How did you find it, Andy?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, really interesting. The guy we spoke to, very interesting guy, spoke very well. And it also felt like the podcast had gone up a level. So it was good feels all round, I think.
Indeed. With these interviews, we hope to highlight different paths or different avenues that some of you might not have thought of to take in your music career. Maybe you'll learn something along the way as well. We definitely got a lot out of the interview. It just felt really good, didn't it, Andy?
It did, yeah. So as you said, hopefully there is a few bits and pieces of value in there for people that listen. I guess we are sort of the inquisitive kids in these things because we're as interested as anyone else in that world. It's not something that we're in ourselves, so it was good.
Right. The actual important question is: did you fall into the trap during the Christmas Gooch?
Which trap? I mean, there was many set. I feel.
How was your productivity?
Below par, I would say.
So you fell into the trap.
Yeah, I think I did. I finished 2 tracks, but that was probably bare minimum.
It sounds pretty productive, but did you do much on them?
Yeah, one of them was a total remix, as in a remix, not a remix, but I mixed it again.
Yeah.
And the other one was just a few finishing touches. So yeah, really productive actually. Yeah.
yeah. I'd say that is pretty productive.
How about you? Come on then.
I mean, I fell into the trap, but I did still move things on. I've pretty much finished my next track, which you've helped me with, so that's good. But it's just hard not to slow the pace down, eat a lot of food, drink a lot, all those traps.
But we're through it.
And it feels really good to be doing the podcast again because it's kind of become like this weekly flagpole in the ground that keeps me going now.
I think I love it. It's weird because we talk anyway, but now we talk and we record it. So it's kind of... No, it's good. I like it.
The guy we spoke to was Vern Asbury, who is a session guitarist and artist from Brighton. He's played on songs by the likes of Lewis Capaldi, One Direction, Anne-Marie, Tom Grennan, Paloma Faith, and the list goes on. We talked in depth about session guitar work and how he ended up playing on some huge pop hits. So let's get into it. And this is our chat from the other day. Hope you have a good weekend. Stay well. Bye.
I don't know if you can hear, but my window cleaner has just started washing my windows. Would you believe it?
There's always something with you.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
He's just doing the window.
Nice little squeak.
Just did a window just there, so it'll move on in a minute.
Let's give it a second then.
Are they in the squeegee stage? That sounds like a squeaky kind of noise to me.
It's so the pole has got the water going through it, and he's he's just doing that.
that bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the squeegee stage yet.
No, it's nowhere near it.
I don't think he does. I don't actually think he does that.
Surely.
No squeegee.
I mean, is that half a job? I mean, should I go out?
Yeah, I reckon you want to have a word, mate.
I'm not sure. I guess they know what they're doing. I mean, squeegee's probably an amateur game, isn't it?
Squeegee's probably 1980s.
Yeah, that might be from the 90s or something, yeah.
If you went out there and said squeegee to him, he'd probably try and knock you out.
Tell us a bit about your younger days. Like, were you in bands straight away? Did you always want to be in bands? Yeah, just quickly.
Okay. I've been making music really since for a long time. I think recording music probably since I was about 14 when I got my hands on my dad's friend's 4-track, which he kindly lent to us. So, and even before that, actually, I used to muck around with my brother who's a bit older than me, and we used to do a really sort of primitive version of multi-tracking, of recording ourselves, like mucking about on guitars before we could even play guitar really, on a ghetto blaster, like a tape thing. And then we'd get another ghetto blaster. So we'd play the original recording of us, of all the tape hiss and everything. And then the second ghetto blaster would record us like sort of overdubbing over the top. So it is like a primitive version of like multi-tracking when I was about 9 or 10 years old.
That's smart.
That's pretty
mate,
good.
You should try that now. That sounds really creative, to be honest.
Yeah. And every time you effectively, well, I suppose you'd call it bouncing down, you know, in production terms, but every time you sort of, you know, recorded over your original recording, you'd get this like incremental tape hiss. So by the sort of third or fourth time, all you'd hear was like, which gave it a nice charm.
Yeah. We'll call that living in the analog world. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's it really. And then been in bands probably since I was about 14 and 15. You know, playing all sorts of stuff, mainly guitar. And then as I got a little bit older, started to attempt to sing as well.
So you weren't someone that saw yourself as a singer straight away?
No,
Okay.
definitely not. I still don't.
Right. Okay. No.
You know, not really. I mean, I sing, but you know, I sort of don't see myself as one, if that makes any kind of sense.
So when you were in these bands and stuff, was it just something to pass the time, or did you have the big dream, or like what was it for you?
I think probably a mixture of all of that. I mean, I think possibly you can both relate that as soon as you start making music and get the bug for it, it becomes all encompassing and it becomes so integral to who you are that you can't really think about yourself in any other terms than being involved with music. So that's probably always been there. And then of course in younger days and you know late teens, early 20s, you have these sort of delusions of grandeur that maybe I can make a career out of this, and maybe I can
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah. And as time goes on, you sort of, well, unless you're one of those very, very lucky people who manages to carve out and sustain a career from that sort of age, or any age for that matter, you swiftly realise that it's bloody difficult. And then I think the other side of it, the sort of the big dream of being a rock star subsides, and then you start to feel, well, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is I'm enjoying making this music. And it sounds a corny cliche, but I think it's true to a degree. And if you didn't enjoy it, then why would you bother?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, that's always been king, I think, is just enjoying making music.
So from that point where you're realizing the dream is fading,
Yes.
what changes? How do you get to where you are now, where you're doing session work? Is that something you knew was an avenue, or is it something that just came up?
It's something that just came up. I mean, I'd always wanted to be involved in music in any way possible, but that particular thing just happened because of a connection. It was someone that I knew and grew up with at school. Wasn't in my year group at school, so didn't know particularly well, but was in my local neighbourhood and knew his family, and used to play football in the playground, that kind of stuff. And saw that my friend Fro Barnes, who's part of TMS Productions, I think at some stage after they stopped producing and DJing breakbeat, which was their into music, they moved into pop and cut Professor Green's first album and co-wrote that with him, produced it. And I saw they were doing that, thought, bloody hell, that's pretty mega, like to be involved in that level of pop. And got chatting with him and said, look, I still play guitar. Because, I mean, Fro knew I played guitar from way back when, since I was like, 13, 14. He used to play drums. I said, if you ever need any guitars, then just give me a shout. He said, well, actually, we'd just say that. We got this thing that's come in, and, have a bash at it and see what you think. So did that. And then God knows how many years later on down the line, I've sort of, I guess, wormed my way in to being their guitar guy. So it's very much, to come back to what you're asking, I suppose I didn't really set out for that, but it sort of ended up happening. I count myself very lucky to be in that position of being asked to play guitars on these pop records,
So just as an inquisitive question, really,
Yeah.
on that first one where they said, "Oh, actually, Vern, yeah, we do need someone that plays guitar." Do they send you the track? Do you go to the studio? Are you replicating a part they've asked you? Are you writing a part?
Well, it can be many things. So that very first instance was for a songwriter called Priscilla Renee. She's based over in the States, and she had this track, and probably just one of the TMS guys had drafted a track with her top lines, her vocal, and had played a kind of, a very simplistic guitar part, and had come to me and said, is there any chance you can sort of embellish this? Can you try and, as best as possible, interpret a kind of Jimi Hendrix Little Wing feel? Okay, well, there's no pressure then. You've got to play guitar like Hendrix.
Welcome to session guitar.
Which, of course, no one can, no one can or could. But yeah, so it was a remote. I had a home setup, at the time, just a PC running a version of Cubase, and fudged my best attempt at putting something together and sent it over to them, and they liked it. As it happens, the record never got cut. They were, I think, initially thinking of making it into an almost like a pop / hip hop thing. And in the end, it ended up just as the a cappella and just my guitar, which was great because it was so exposed and you could hear it all.
That's cool.
It's sitting on my hard drive somewhere, but it never got cut and it never saw the light of day. And since then, in terms of how I've approached the session work, it's been a mixture of that. The remote process, I'd say probably by far the lion's share of it is me sitting in my spare room with headphones on, like I got now, and occasionally I'll go up and play in their fancy studio. They had a really nice studio for a while in Richmond, actually, owned by Terry Britton, who's the guy who wrote "What's Love Got to Do with It" by Tina Turner. So it's, going in this
small
place, and
song,
little number you may have heard of. And, for me, that was like, I rarely get to go in recording studios anyway. I've been in a handful in my life, but that was a special studio. And, there's all these bloody gold discs and all this paraphernalia all over the place, and made me feel very excited. And, so, that's one of the rare occasions I've actually gone into a studio and played a session. But
and I guess due to the world's climate, that's probably not going to change. Remote recording has had an even bigger boom. So
yeah, very much so.
Which is a bit of a shame, because like how you felt going into that environment, the romantic in me would like to think that plays in a part into what goes into the song in the end.
Absolutely. I think you're quite right. That feeling you get going into a studio and being in the office, as it were, does give you an extra motivation. You kind of feel that you've got to I'm here now, I better bloody do well. And it adds a level of pressure, but as a musician, probably a healthy level of pressure. You need a little bit of nerves to bring out the best performance, etc. The flip side of that is, of course, when doing a remote session and it's in my time and it's just me engineering myself and editing my own takes and stuff, it takes the pressure off, and then you end up with probably getting something that's a bit more a bit less rough around the edges maybe, but a bit more like this is the way you hear it, and then you're through that filter, then you're chucking it off and they can unhear it. If you know what I mean.
I guess when you're working in pop as well, it's often something that needs to be quite precise and less flair and just more exactly what they're looking for anyway. So,
well, that suits me down to the ground, to be honest with you, because I can't play the flair stuff.
So when you get asked for a part, how much room is there? What do they give you precise directions?
It's a bit of a movable feast, really. So
sorry, and also, what do you prefer? Do you prefer having the direct guidelines, or do you prefer having a bit of give?
I think if I'm being totally honest, I probably prefer having a bit of creative give, because the shackles are off and you get a chance to sort of express yourself, but you can get overexcited and find yourself spending too long sort of exploring an idea which is kind of irrelevant in the context of how the producers want the song to sound. So sometimes having those slightly narrower margins to work in help you to get to the point quicker. And occasionally they'll send me a guitar part which one of the guys has like roughly played out, or even the artist has roughly played, just to get the vibe of the song, and then say, can you just basically play this and tidy it up and make it, try and make it a bit tighter all round. And occasionally there'll be a need for some kind of hooky lead line, like something that will recycle over a loop over something. And the guys will say, we know roughly what we're after. Here's a couple of reference points of songs that we'd like you to listen to inspire what you're going to play. And then can you just hit as many ideas as you can over like a 4 and 8 bar loop, and we'll sort of A, B, C, D, blah, blah, G them, and until they find the thing that works with the song.
Do they just like specify tone and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like, and what are you using? Are you real amps or are you Kempers?
Once in a blue moon, I'll like mic up an amp, but that will be mainly for like a weird trying to go for an outside the box textural thing, like getting a bit of feedback or something, which you wouldn't be able to get by just using, going via like a DI into an interface or whatever. But so most of the time I'm using Guitar Rig, and I will at this end get an approximation of a sound that is close to the reference they'll give me. So say, for example, we like this loop, like here's a Coldplay thing that we'd like to get near. Can you at least try and do your best to get near that sound? And then at their end, they've got lots of tools at their disposal, so they can reamp it and make it. I mean, whatever they use at their end is always going to sound better than what I've got at my end. So I'm just getting a loose kind of thing.
Okay, so they're not expecting the final tone to come from you. They're expecting a representation, but they just want it to be played well, basically.
Yeah, exactly that.
So are you working with, do you have like saved templates that you speed up the process with, or do you have a go-to sound?
Yeah, I think it's horses for courses. I've got like, there's a few presets I'll use. It's rare that they'll want a really sort of like dirty, distorted tone. Usually a semi kind of driven tone, all just on the edge of clean and distorted is often the thing as far as electrics are concerned. And then we'll put on whatever effects on top of that to get near the reference point. But a lot of the stuff I play, probably the lion's share in a weird way, is acoustic stuff, and that's just, very bone dry, either single mic it or double mic it. And comp what I've got, send them down, often try and play a tight as I can double. They like to add like width to their recordings. And then if there's any, minor quantizing they need to do to make that super tight, they'll do it their end. I don't try not to get too bogged down with the sort of editing this end. If it's something that's like ridiculously tight, they'll do it better than me. They're good at that. They're really good at that.
Are you working with the same production team every time? So I guess that speeds up the process. They know what you can offer and you know what they want after working with them so many times. Yeah, that's it. I mean, we've got a really good working relationship. We kind of know how each other works. There's obviously just the one of me, but there's 3 of them. So although collectively they'll have a general ethos and make a decision on how things want to go, individually they do come from 3 slightly different perspectives. So if one of them, for example, is steering the project and the other 2 are just going to come in at a later point, it will take on a slightly different flavor that will be individual to that person. So I kind of got to know the guys pretty well now, so and hopefully they know what I do and can't do as well. It's a lot of it is like knowing limitations, I think. It's like you've got to know what you can't do and leave that out. Well, I'm gonna relate it back to when I do production. Sometimes you don't have the conversation where you've really refined what you're looking for. Sometimes you can then be like, you've got this open book and get really carried away and you love it. But then it goes back to the artist and it's kind of wasted time. Well, not completely wasted time, but you've taken it too far away from what they were looking for. So it is important to have those restrictions.
Yeah.
You know, it can have a bit of give, but everyone needs to know what they're trying to get out of the session.
I think something important to that extent as well is, you know, you have to learn to be a bit thick-skinned, I think. You know, something that you hear as being the thing isn't necessarily the thing. And you might think it's, you know, the proverbial dogs, but they might not. And you know, they'll just say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't use it. And you sweat and put all your efforts into something and be passionate about something. At the end of the day, it might not make the cut. And if you can't take that, and if you can't understand that for the greater good, that isn't the thing, then it's not the right game for you. You know, you've got to accept that what you think is good, it might well be good, but it might not be the thing, you know.
Yeah.
So with knowing that, you obviously know that you've done it hundreds of times now. Do you still feel like you put the same amount of passion and energy into it every time, knowing that? Or do you now go, well, this might not be that good? How do you approach it?
I think over time, then you probably. So just to go back to the first thing, is that every time I get a job in, you know, get a call or whatever, I still have that same kid-like enthusiasm. I can't believe someone's asked me to play guitar. I can't believe it. Every time, it's like I just, you know, honestly, like Kid in a Sweet Shop, brilliant, amazing, and then I have to sort of like think, oh God, how am I going to fit that in my actual life? Oh well, the kids can just play by themselves. So that's the first thing, and then the second thing to that would be, over time I think you probably learn where you should be reining it in, and you probably recognise signs of, I'm probably indulging down a cul-de-sac here. Well, you know, that maybe the guys don't want a tapping solo over a folk song. I think you probably learn that pretty swiftly.
So do you find yourself playing? You are playing within yourself. The parts are not, like you say, you're not doing. It's rare they want tapping solos or any solo to that. I mean, you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, again, coming back to my limitations, I couldn't play a tapping solo to save my life. I'm more of a kind of a straight up sort of nose flute, you know, kind of guy.
You play with feel, Vern. With feel.
And you know, that is king, really, isn't it? It's it's got to sound good and it's got to lean to the sensibilities of the song. I was speaking to someone the other day who's not a musician, and I was waxing lyrical about that Beatles documentary, which have just recently finished. And I'm a Beatles fan, and you know, I guess some people might not be, but we got into a conversation about drummers and the inevitable, Ringo was crap conversation came out. I was like, I hate to break it to you, but he was an awesome drummer, and it's like, and there's no amount of being evangelical that's going to convince someone any different, unless they're a musician or not, that or just understand listening. Don't have to be a musician. You just have to understand that the part and the vibe suits the song. I don't know if there's a better example of any drummer of all time than Ringo Starr of doing exactly that. And,
so I haven't watched all of it. That always comes up, right? But the fact is, he's the drummer on all those recordings. You watch it and okay, he's not doing like the most complicated stuff, but he's keeping time and playing what's right for the others to breathe. And all that is just...
Yeah. He has a feel, though, about him, doesn't he? You swing to his playing. That
exactly.
You
can't teach it, can you, really? No. And I was actually going to say with you saying, you're playing within yourself, but you can't do tap solos and stuff like that. But the actual point isn't that anyway, is to have an understanding of what's required for that track.
Yeah.
And that's more important than anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess they wouldn't keep asking you back if you were like,
I completely agree.
Really bad, would they?
I spoke to Ben a few months ago when a job came in, and he said that. He said it's gone beyond the point of being polite because we know you. It's like,
which is actually the kind of relationship you need in music. You need to have no egos amongst anyone. You need to be like, that's not working, that's crap. get rid of it.
You know.
And until you have that relationship, you're generally pussyfooting around and not really getting to the meat of the song and what it actually requires to get it done. Just a quick break to let you know,
If you're looking for some free stems,
sample packs,
production breakdowns,
you can find some over at poolhouse.com. Now back to the episode. When you get given a part, what's the turnaround like? Do you get a week? Is it 12 hours? Is it, what is it?
It completely depends. The standard template is that a song will reach a certain point in production and all of a sudden there'll be this like emergency, right, we need a guitar on it. It needs to be done yesterday. That's happened a few times. I'm probably being cruel to say that's all the time.
Do you have to just drop everything in your life then?
I've got a choice, of course. I could say, no, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I've got, other stuff going on. But, going back to that feeling like a, real, genuine kid-like excitement. Of course I want to do that. And I've been really lucky that I've got, such a supportive partner that's been able to sort of pick up the slack if I've had, looking after the kids and running the house and all the rest of it. If I've said, look, I've got this job in last minute, can I do it? So I've been really lucky on that front. And then occasionally there'll be a job that doesn't really have any immediate deadline. And it's just a case of, get it done when you can, Vern. And there's been a few jobs like that recently. There's a couple of albums I've been chipping away at, which are due for release past, I think, Q3 of this year being 2022, for anyone listening to it in 2050.
I forget all the time, honestly. I have to keep looking at the year.
Yeah, exactly. And those have a lot less pressure on them to sort of do immediately, and it's just a case of finding the time. But the logistical divide of that is it's weird. I need a quiet house to do acoustic guitars, but it doesn't matter if there's all sorts of noise going on for electrics because I'm just plugging straight in and doing it on the headphones. But having a screaming baby in the background isn't going to sit well on a pop cut unless they're going a bit wacky with it.
So I was going to ask, we're quite in now. Can we start dropping some names of things that you've done?
Okay.
Good or bad? You don't have to say which one was good and which one was bad. But
okay. Have you heard of Timmy Mallet?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Well, I haven't worked for him yet.
Oh. That's a real shame because I was actually quite excited that you'd done something totally random for Timmy Mallet.
Well, I've been hounding him on Twitter for some time now to try and get some work, but he just, I think he's blocked me. So probably sent one
Still
or two
hustling.
Pictures. Still hustling. So the main big name drop is probably Lewis Capaldi, and I played on Before You Go, which was his second sort of big single.
Wow.
A couple of years ago. I'm completely chuffed to have gotten onto that, and I've been off the back of that working a lot on the new Lewis Capaldi album, which will be, as I say, that's one of the ones that's due out this year. I've worked lots on it and done loads of songs, but it's doubtful.
All guitar parts.
All guitar parts, yeah. I don't know how many of those songs will make the cut, in all honesty. I'd be very happy for one,
Yeah, so just because I'm interested, how do you personally get cut? Like, how does it work in terms of your guitar part? Do you get paid via your time, or do you get paid if it gets cut? Is it, how does it work?
Yeah, well, it's, I have an agreement with TMS that when the session comes in, they're effectively paying me to do the session. So that's the first thing. And then in terms of any afters after that, broadly speaking, royalties, it's subject to, the session musician doesn't get any writing credits. That's the first thing, unless you've sat in on the session and have written the track, of course, which is what I really want to do, what I want to get to. Yeah. But if the song gets cut and then becomes a single, it's bound to get radio plays. So any kind of radio play is what will accrue royalties for a session musician. And, I've played on some, I played on a cut for One Direction when they were a thing, and the song got
Yeah, I've
buried.
heard of them.
Heard of them? They're another one you can pick off the floor.
No, I like it. I'm encouraging that in this podcast.
Okay. And, the song didn't do anything. It got buried on the album. It was off Made in the AM, which is their last thing that they recorded before they disbanded and all did their separate things. And I think I probably earned about 3p off it, purely because it just never saw the light of day on the radio.
Yeah.
So if it gets put on an album and doesn't get any kind of media broadcasting, then you don't stand to make any dosh off it. So it's a tricky one with session work. If you did it, I've got a day job as well. I should probably explain that. So it's not my sole income. You'd need to do lots and lots of sessions and get the session fees up front. And if you wanted to sustain a career where you could start thinking about making it your proper income, getting royalties coming in, you'd need to be on a lot of singles. So when I work, for example, it's rare that a song I work on will get cut. It sound to my ears, they all sound absolutely professionally produced. These could all be on the radio, but they don't often. And within a smaller margin of those cut songs, which ones actually go on to be singles. So it's a very, 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 very small number. So you just got to be pretty lucky,
Does that affect your motivation on doing it?
It doesn't really affect my, it's a good second job, as it were. And it doesn't really affect my motivation or opinion of it whatsoever at the moment. I guess selfishly, bigger picture, firstly, as I said, I'm being paid to make music. I count my complete blessings for that. I've been trying to get to that stage for, as long as I've been able to pick up a guitar, basically. So feel pretty lucky for that. But also selfishly, I think it's trying to, all roads lead to Rome kind of thing. As long as I keep on doing this over there and this over here, my end game is I want songs that I've had a hand in writing, either on my own or with other people, to sort of see the light of day. That would probably, the thing that would make me happiest in music is for that to happen. Yeah.
Okay.
So just trying to keep my oar in as many, I don't know, whatever the metaphor is, streams as possible.
At this point, you're creating a nice CV that will hopefully get you in the rooms with these kinds of people, because you would have earned it at some point. I
hope so. But, it's a funny one, that, because I might have perceived the whole golden ticket of being a professional songwriter. There's that whole thing, if you look at social media and see songwriters currently saying it's a bit unjust, I'm signing away my publishing. I'm a professional songwriter and I can't afford to pay the rent. And there's me thinking a bit naively, I think, that if you're a songwriter, that in itself is enough to sustain a career. In the status quo, I think that's not necessarily the case now. It may have been the case of yesteryear.
I think it'd be similar to your process, as in unless you get a single cut, then it's never going to be your job, really.
I think that's it. Yeah. It's that iceberg effect, isn't it? You got to be that tiny, tiny bit at the top is what you've got to, is what you want to see. And it's really hard. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but it's difficult, isn't it? Sustaining any career in music, I think.
It is hard. I think me and Andy have spoke about this before on the podcast, is the dream changes. You have these big dreams when you're younger. You're like, oh, maybe this band is the one or whatever. And quickly that becomes, actually, if I could just make a living and just get by off music, that's pretty great.
Absolutely.
Even when it's hard, what we have to remember is every time you do something, you're putting more of a foundation down for years to come. But you have to play the long game.
Yeah.
The instant gratification or big hit of money happens to 0.5%. But those who can play the long game and actually build a brand for themselves, multiple streams of income, whether it's session work, teaching, production, those are the ones that are going to survive. And sadly, it's hard to get your head around when I think for us, we all grew up in a time where music still had monetary value, whereas now it doesn't.
Time to jump on the NFT game, is it?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I think so, yeah.
There's always going to be something else.
Yeah, right.
The people that win are the ones that are able to pivot and jump on those things very quickly. It's hard. I find it hard to be like, something else already. I'm just getting my head around what was, Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you've got any kind of, and I'm learning this having kids, if you've got any kind of handle on what you think is current, it's already dated. Daddy-o.
Your relationship with music, has it changed since you were younger? Or do you feel like you're tied to music? Is there, a bit of you that's like, life would be a bit easier if I wasn't so tied to it?
Maybe, but maybe I can't. I think it's just such an integral part of who I am that I couldn't imagine any other way. And it's been like that, since I was kind of a baby. It's been such an important part of like family life, and the thing that binds everything together is music for me. And I don't think I resent it in any way.
Good. That was a test.
I resent being a sports fan, because I've got friends who aren't sports fans and seem a lot happier and less stressed. And all I ever do is just find myself being, maybe I need to support different teams and different players. Then I'll stop being such a, so angry for the world.
Have there been moments where you felt like you wanted to stop music, or has it always just been, for you, it's just always something that's part of your life?
Yeah, I've never wanted to stop it, and I think even if I wasn't sort of pursuing some kind of professional venture, the most immediate thing is I'd always pick up a guitar, and I need to do that, and it's part of who I am. And if it's just for my own entertainment and just to express myself, and no one else ever listened, if I was on a desert island and there was a guitar there, I'd play it,
Yeah.
It's something that I couldn't even conceive that being without.
Well, it's the reason I ask is, going back, you're younger, you start bands, everyone around you wants to be in a band. It's like, some people just want to do it as a social thing. Others, it's like their lifeblood. But as you get older, for me anyway, there's less immediate people around who are still pursuing a career in music. So obviously, at some point with these people, they make the decision to just be like, I'm going to try something else now. And one of the main things of doing this podcast with interviews is we want to speak to people who have maybe pivoted into a different creative part of music, because when you start, the only thing you see are artists and bands on the TV, and school doesn't give you avenues for being a session musician. It's better these days. Obviously there's more things out there, but kind of want to just expose, there are different ways of being in music and not having to be an artist, or
there really are so many different avenues. And perhaps that needs to be more sold, I suppose, as an idea. There are so many different careers that you can opt for within music. It's often, though, the romanticism of seeing those pop stars on TV that makes you, the consumer in all of us, and probably the ego trip in all of us at that age anyway. It makes us think, right, that's what I want.
Totally.
That or nothing.
That's it.
I think you quickly realise that, that is a 1 in a million. But, it's not to say you can't have a career in music and a career doing something else in the creative aspect, which go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You've managed to balance being an artist, someone who sings for bands, someone who does session guitar work and has a day job. I think what I'm trying to say is you can have all of it if you want. You maybe look at it in another way and just being like, you can actually do so many different things and fit it into your life.
Yeah, you totally can do. I think if you and particularly when you've got a bit more youth on your side, which probably is quite patronising to say to some people who are listening to this who are older than us and thinking, I can't believe they've come out with this precocious dribble. And I think what was going, the tangent I was going off on there is that if you were completely instrumental and single-minded in those younger years, that you probably got a better chance of getting that very 1 in a million shot thing from happening. I've heard of people, when I was giving it a better go, should I say, in my early 20s, I heard of people that would quit their jobs, they'd do the classic arts thing, they'd be on the dole, and all they would do, they'd eat absolute garbage, tins of beans to survive kind of thing. All they would do is make music round the clock and go to people's offices and hammer their product and do their thing. So they're, if you wanted to really give it its best shot and went a bit psychopathic with it, you'd probably do that. For me,
how far did those people get though?
I don't know. The example I'm giving actually is a friend. So I was in a band with a guy called Doug, he was the drummer, and he went on to a couple of different bands and then joined this band. And I think they were based in from up north somewhere, and they'd come down to London and had done exactly that. They'd gone on the dole, and they were just really pushing it and going for it. I couldn't. And
they're called Coldplay. Let this be a lesson to you all.
So I just want to quickly go on to you as an artist. How many different things do you have going on at the minute?
I'm doing a few things really. I think the main thrust of it at the moment, from a songwriting perspective, is I'm in a duo with a guy called Sam Bourne, who I've played music with for a long time, and he's actually based over in the Netherlands. So he grew up there, so he's bilingual, and he studied over here at BIM, Brighton Institute of Modern Music, a long time ago now, which is how I met him, and he joined a band I was in at the time playing bass. That's how that relationship started, and I'm now sort of in a remote production duo, really, just chipping away and making songs with Sam under the name of Blueprint Moon. And it's great. Both of us like writing ideas, but Sam's an incredible bass player. He's a great guitarist as well, and he's also got lots of, he's great at, he's great at everything actually, singing and playing keys. And so we'll just send each other short sketches, and then the other one will kind of develop it a bit their end with no real direction or shackles, just wherever you see it going. And then we'll just play a game of, I guess, email table tennis with the project until eventually we've got a final thing. And I'll
kind of like what you did with the Ghetto Blaster back in the day.
very much so, but with a little
full
bit
circle. Love it.
But we have to artificially add the hiss now.
Plug in for that.
Yeah, the hiss is just our own struggling thoughts. So that's it. And I guess it's my sort of job within that relationship, or one of them anyway, is to collate the final project and, for a better word, produce it. Although it's a co-produced thing, he's doing a lot of the legwork production-wise, his end, but I put it in the project and arrange it, I guess. And so that's that. And I was also lucky to be called in. This going back to earlier when you said I don't view myself as a singer. I got called in to do a singing job, which was really flattering.
This guy can't play guitar and he can't sing, and he's a session guitarist and a session singer.
I just very good at smoke and mirrors, I think. There's a guy called Andy Morehouse who it's a weird serendipitous meeting that occurred, I think, somewhere in Tunbridge Wells, and he got speaking to someone in like a health club or something about music, and he spoke to this woman, said, my son plays guitar and he's in this band and you should check them out. They're called Young Sahara, and that was a band that I was in at the time as the rhythm guitarist and vocalist. And for whatever reason, this guy liked the sound of my voice. I'm not what I'd call a trained singer or even a particularly skilled one, but I'm a vocalist is probably a better term for the guff that comes out
But
of my
you've got
face.
a clear identity when you sing,
Right,
And
right.
often, actually, that's what people want more than anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's what it was with with him. He liked the sort of the tone of it and the identity of my voice, and called me in for a project to record. And it's an exciting one. He's kind of come up with a bit of a concept about a sort of forgotten songwriter of the 60s that never came into his pomp, or his career never came into fruition. And the idea is that his works are kind of discovered in like a house clearance, in a loft, in like a dusty chest kind of thing, all these manuscripts. And someone decides to bring these forgotten works to life. And he's tried to capture the sort of essence of the sounds of the 60s, progressing from 1960 through to 1970. So you can hear the sort of progressive genre changes.
wow.
And try to keep the production techniques as close as possible to how things would have been done then, although obviously everything's been recorded through a computer, etc. But he brought in some like really big name session musicians, a guy called Ralph Salmons who's played drums, and I'm paraphrasing Andy here, but you need to take off a week to read this guy's CV. It's ridiculous. He's worked with absolutely everyone, like Paul McCartney, Aretha Franklin, current Waterboys drummer Van Morrison. If
Wow.
I implore you to check out Ralph Salmon's website and go on his credits list. It's mental. And then the guy that plays bass is a guy called Dale Davis, who was Amy Winehouse's bassist and musical director. And so those two made up the rhythm section, and then little old tape hiss guy doing his impression of singing.
What a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, honestly, I'm so chuffed, and it's now finally out in the ether. It's the project's called the Friends of Norman Havelock. Go check it out if you can, and it's out there. And a great thing to be a part of. I'm not sure what he wants to do with the project from here on in, whether he wants to try and make it a live thing or do a second album with it or whatever. But whatever happens with it, it's great to have been involved in it, and it was really interesting wearing a different hat musically,
Not having to pick up the guitar.
Not once. Not once. The guy who plays on it is a fantastic guy called John Wheatcroft, and he's an amazing session player. He's got an Instagram channel where he's breaking down lots of Django Reinhardt stuff, so that gives you some idea of his proficiency level. He's a pretty serious player, It was great, and I don't know, I'm just excited to see what happens with it now. It might not make a big splash commercially, but who knows, and it's great to have got the call up. Yeah.
But yeah, last question. If you were to give your younger self any bit of advice, what would you say to that person?
Give up music. No.
Support a different team.
Yeah, 100%. Any advice I give to myself? I'd say, I'd just say, I'd just say keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. At every age I've been at, I've just loved making music, and without sounding like a hippie, without music, I think my life would have been a lot worse so far. So I just advise my younger self to keep playing guitar, keep writing songs, because I know that 20, 30 years down the line, whatever, that it's still the one, not the only thing, but it's one thing that's consistently brought me joy, So, I'm not going to stop. It's just, it's a lovely thing to be involved with music,
Perfect.
Nice.
All right, Vern. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Pool House podcast, and we'll get you back on another time, I'm sure, when
that Lewis Capaldi album drops.
You better believe it. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it, and I hope you're all keeping well. And I'm wishing you both success with musical ventures too.
Thank you very much.
Mate.
All right, talk to you soon, mate.
Nice one, guys. Cheers.
If you like what you've heard today,
Please hit the follow or subscribe button to be notified about future episodes. You can massively help us out by leaving a review.
And sharing with your friends and family
is also a beautiful way to help us grow.
As always, we'd love to hear from you, so don't be a stranger.
We want to build a community and we want you to be a part of it. Until the next one, stay good.